Welcome to the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Medspa podcast, where we dive into the art and science of building a thriving medspa. I'm your host, Kat Toronto. In this podcast, we're all about empowering medical professionals and entrepreneurs like you with the knowledge, tools, and inspiration needed to elevate your practice to new heights. Whether you're just starting your journey or you're a seasoned expert looking to expand, this is the place where the industry's brightest minds come together to share their secrets to success. So sit back, relax, and get ready to unlock the potential of your med spa with the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast. Let's go on this journey together, one success story at a time. Hi, I'm Kat Toronto, and I'm so excited for today's episode of Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast. I have to say, I'm also a little nervous, which I think my listeners here will understand as I do the introductions. But today I have Dr. Paco Canales and Dr. Heather Furnas on with me today. Dr. Canales, as you're going to find out, is a graduate of Harvard College and Stanford University. Dr. Heather Furnas is a graduate of Stanford and UCLA School of Medicine. Dr. Canales is Chief of Plastic Surgery at Santa Rosa Memorial and Chief of Surgery at Warwick. Dr. Furnas has served as a clinical instructor of surgery at Harvard and is currently an adjunct clinical associate professor of plastic surgery at Stanford University. They co-founded the Plastic Surgery Associates and Allegra Med Spa in 1992. Podcast, Skintuition, which we're going to talk about tonight. Dr. Furnas is a co-author of The Business of Plastic Surgery. They have 2 kids. They are 2 of the most humble people that you will meet. And I will tell you that if I knew all of this when they told me back when I met them that they had listened to me at the AMSPA meeting, I might have walked myself off the stage. So truly
you
humble.
were great, Kathy. You were sensational. We loved everything you said.
Oh, I'm just so excited to have you on. Big welcome to both of you. Thank you for taking the time to share your insights and your passion for aesthetics with our listeners. And, I just have to say, you started your practice, both the plastic surgery practice and the med spa in 1992. Is that correct?
Well, the plastic surgery practice in 1992 in Santa Rosa, and the med spa officially as Allegra Med Spa in 2006. We had med spa services before, but we created a separate entity and a separate name in 2006.
And so I also noticed that you moved from Boston to Santa Rosa. So let's start with that. Why the move from coast to coast, other than the weather?
Yeah, other than the weather.
So we both trained, did our plastic surgical training at Stanford. And then we took a position with Harvard Med School, Beth Israel Hospital in Boston, but ultimately decided, it's an academic position, we're training residents, but we ultimately decided to return to the general Bay Area, Northern California, and start a private practice. And that was in 92. So we actually were in Boston before that. And so we were doing reconstructive surgery, and we did not anticipate becoming aesthetic plastic surgeons. And, just the way that this area was going, people were leaving town, reimbursements were so low. So we made the decision, either we move or we shift. And that meant that by giving up insurance, we became aesthetic plastic surgeons, which we absolutely love. But there's a missing part. When you do the surgery, there's so much that, else to do. And that's when we recognize there's a real need for the med spa.
And so let's take one step back even further. How did you 2 meet? How did this partnership come about?
Well,
And I just gotta say, I hope for those of you that aren't watching, you'll watch because they have the most beautiful smiles. And just in that moment, they just looked at each other and smiled, and it was just so great. So anyway, back to you.
Yeah, well now we would probably be accused of fraternizing, but back in the day, we were both training in plastic in surgery at Stanford, and I happened to be the resident on pediatric surgery, and I had this new intern come on named Heather Furnas. And the good news about pediatric surgery at Stanford, it was the hardest rotation there ever was. So the resident essentially spent 3 months straight at the hospital, and the intern hardly ever got to be home. So Heather and I got to spend an entire month together, literally almost 24/7. So that's how we met. We didn't have a lot of time for socializing, but soon thereafter, we went out on a date, and the rest is history. So we got married 18 months later.
And so what was the courtship like? Who was chasing?
It was like
who was the chaser?
17-hour cases. And,
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of sick kids, so we just had to be there and working together. And the team was just the two of us. It was a very small team. We might have a medical student, but he was the nicest general surgeon. And not that that's a super high bar, but he was so nice, so great with the kids. All the nurses, all the janitors, everyone loved him. And, he was just like so great. So, so my heart went pity patter as our sleep thrived and working 120-hour weeks. That was the one positive.
Yeah, and I think after 6 weeks, she said, "That's it. I think we should get married." And there was like, what? Total silence. And so she knew it was a matter of convincing me. So it didn't take a lot of convincing, but we made the move. So
I think it worked out. I mean, how many years later is this?
I think it worked out. Yeah, totally. So.
Oh, all right. So you shifted into aesthetics, and what was the initial, when you originally opened your plastic surgery clinic, what were the top procedures that you were doing?
Prior to shifting, it was breast reconstruction was our biggest thing. And so when we shifted, we had to rebrand ourselves, and we did some aesthetic surgery, and we've always done sort of face, breast, body, and it's not like we're New York City, so we don't need to specialize, and we don't, we love the variety, and so we just sort of built up our reputation a little bit at a time. We had seminars and restaurants and seminars in our office, and just one step at a time.
Yeah, and one little known fact is that a big part of plastic surgery is hand surgery. And there was a separate certificate and certification for hand surgery. So when we moved to town, I ended up being the first and only certified hand surgeon in all of Sonoma County. And people referred a lot of hand cases. So when we decided we're going to shift away from insurance and hand surgery and breast reconstruction, I literally had to go up to the wall, take my hand certificate down and hide it, because people kept thinking of us as these reconstructive plastic surgeons, send them the hands, send them the breast, whereas we really wanted to focus on aesthetic surgery. And we hired a consultant at the time, which was unusual, and we didn't have any money to hire this consultant. So I actually borrowed the money, didn't tell Heather, and paid the guy off the loan. And he came, analyzed our practice, and told us how terrible we were, because we had no customer service and we didn't really know what we were doing, and aesthetic surgery was a different field.
Yeah, we were good at chasing, getting prior authorizations and getting the, insurance payment. That's, and that's that takes a bulldog staff. And he said, your staff is not cut out for aesthetic plastic surgery. It's about customer service.
Well, don't you think a lot of physicians that are coming into aesthetic medicine, even today, have a similar struggle? If they come from family practice or OBGYN or emergency, medicine, or, I think It's something that I hear quite often, and it's something that we see as we do consulting with clinics across the country. It's a hard shift. So were you able to train your existing team, or did you have to start over a little bit?
We had to start over a little bit. And, we sent them to this consultant. The consultant came up. We would do what we could, patchwork training. And little by little, we trained the staff, and we realized that you really have to invest in the training. And I know you've got men, you're really invested in training staff and teaching others to train. And that is absolutely true. And people will say, why would you invest all of that if they could just leave and go elsewhere? And it's better to have a trained person leave and go elsewhere than to have no one trained.
Well, one thing we found is that not everybody could make the shift. There were some staff members that truly didn't have the ability to switch into customer service. And there's a saying, hire the smile, and then you can train them. But if you don't have the smile and you don't have the right way to interact with patients, that person's going to be much harder to train than somebody who knows nothing about aesthetics, nothing about med spas, nothing about medicine, but has a great disposition, has great interactions person to person, and that person can come from wherever, from the hospitality business or from a totally sales job someplace else. And we found some of those that way, as opposed to hiring more medical people.
We found the perfect trio: virtual, quick, and free. Mint is hosting 1-hour clinical trainings for eCourse subscribers on the first Tuesday of each month at 2:30 p.m. Central Time. We will be covering clinical topics like Sculptra, Genius, BBL, and Hydrofacial. Check out the link below in our show notes to learn more. Our flagship training event is back for another year. Join Mint Aesthetics for our virtual immersion seminar on June 14th, September 6th, or December 6th, or all three, for a day-long comprehensive training on BBL and Halo. We will cover an in-depth didactic with insights on settings, contraindications, post-care, and more. Plus, we will close out the day with hands-on combination treatment demonstrations. For only $5.99, you can get the best BBL Halo training for your entire team. You also have the option to pay with Sciton Success Builder points. Registration is now open for all dates, so book your spot now.
Yeah, I think there's more in common with aesthetic medicine with, say, the Ritz-Carlton than with a neurologist office. So, medical background is not what we're looking for.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, we are definitely, we definitely live that as well. And I just was talking with someone that had managed, I think, with Chick-fil-A, and they were saying that in their hiring process, when they had an interview, and the participant joined them, if they didn't smile the moment they walked in the door, they would smile at that person. If they didn't smile back, the interview was pretty much over. And I thought, that's really interesting, because recently I had a rep bring in a potential candidate that they were hiring in this area for one of the laser manufacturers. And when she walked in the door, I smiled at her and she didn't smile back. And I thought, that's strange. And I'm asking her questions, engaging with her, and just nothing. And then I thought, I wonder if they're going to give this person the job, and sure enough, they didn't. But just the little things like that make the biggest difference, because it is all customer service.
Yeah. And one thing that we told the staff as we train them is, when you answer the phone, smile into the phone. And we even gave them a little sort of cheat card. They smile as you talk to people, because people can sense your own state of being from far away. So we want people to be warm, to just say, oh my God, it's so great to talk to you. And where do you live? What occasion do you have coming up? Is it a wedding? Is it whatever? But that bonding and smiling really is what makes that person. So staff is always a pain point for med spas or plastic surgery practices. And it's just trying to find that right person that has the right skills to be able to straddle the sales and medicine together.
And so have you found any particular method? I mean, you did say actually hire the smile, train the skill. Is that the main method that you look for in your hiring process to avoid those pains? Because, we know, I mean, it's the most expensive thing that happens in our business is turnover.
Yeah.
And, and it's
Absolutely.
so expensive to train them. And so, any other methods that you use or places you go to find your team members that we haven't talked about?
Well, we will go to putting ads online, and I've been reading actually a lot about hiring and just the job description that you put out there. That you tend to just put sort of tasks and the phrasing that's not super exciting. And so what I was reading is you really want to paint this big picture dream and how great this dream team is. And so I think just learning how to attract good people through a good hook makes a difference. And
one thing that we started, Kat, about, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago, was we were finding that maybe California, because of what the school system's like here, the quality of the applicants was going down, and we were hiring people who sometimes were overwhelmed with very simple tasks. So we started to give them a math test and an English test. And these are very simple tests. The math test was at the 6th grade level, and we gave them a calculator. It wasn't calculus or algebra or anything. It was what's 10% of 100. And then the English test was just write a paragraph about anything you want to write. It could be your favorite trip, your favorite book. It was just about how do they communicate in the written language, and do they make a ton of mistakes? Do they have basic math skills? If you hire a patient coordinator and they're trying to do conversion rates and they're trying to give quotes and do math, they have to be able to have at least basic math skills. And we found that a lot of people completely fail on both ends.
Yeah, and when sometimes they'll text or email patients, and if we have misspellings or poor use of the English language, then that reflects badly on us. And so that has really been helpful for us. Some people don't pass any questions, so
It makes me think of that show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder, my son's in 2nd grade and I'm like, oh my gosh, if this is 2nd grade math,
I know what
I'm going to
happened.
be in trouble.
Yeah, when the kids got to 6th grade, after that I said, ask your mother. And then it was better, a lot easier. All the math questions, go over there.
Oh, well, I love the idea of painting this picture in the post, for hiring and making sure that we take the time to sell and market this amazing position within this incredible practice, because it's true. Sometimes it's like, oh, hiring can feel so mundane and so, takes so long. But if we would just take the time to do a good job at that piece, we probably would really increase the number of qualified people that we get to come in. I think that's such a valid point.
Exactly.
I love all that. Okay, so to go back to 1992, or actually to 2006, when you launched Allegra, what were the procedures that you offered?
Well, back then, we were early adopters of Botox. So we had Botox. We probably had collagen at some point. I think Restylane may have been one of the earliest fillers that we also offered. And then as far as machines, I think there was almost nothing out there. We were doing CO2 laser on the plastic surgery side, but it was ablative, fully ablative, 3-week recovery CO2 lasers, which are not conducive to the med spa. So one of the early things that I read about was that IPL had been invented, quote unquote, and endermology, which is the cellulite machine. And one of the funny things is that IPL theoretically was invented by Pat Bitter. And depending on who you ask, it was either Pat Bitter Jr. or Pat Bitter Sr. And they had each had their own claim. But Pat Bitter Jr. was my classmate in medical school, and I hadn't even thought about Pat in so many years. So we got an IPL machine. And at the time, the doctors meaning the two of us, were doing IPL, and we were doing the Botox, and we were doing whatever injections there were. And it's interesting to think back 17 years and to what we have today. There's just a plethora of devices in body and face and resurfacing and vaginal intimate wellness. And it just exploded. And we happened to kind of ride that wave as more devices came along. And we found out that very quickly, one of the most important things that we needed was a great relationship with our banker, because we needed to borrow money. And at some point, our bank put us in an ad as one of their great customers. And I said, I'm not sure I want to be that, because that means that we borrowed a lot of money from you guys.
So when you think of all the devices, treatments, products, that you've offered over the years, what are the surprises for good or for bad? Was there anything that you brought on and thought like, oh, I'm not sure, that we're not sure how this is going to go, but let's try it, and it was a huge success? Or was there something that you brought on thinking this is going to be a huge success and it didn't work at all?
Well, it's not necessarily that it didn't work at all, but some of the early machines had less of a margin of safety. Right now we have a higher margin of safety. There's computerized instructions, and you can do settings depending on skin types. The earlier machines depended a lot on the individual practitioner. And we had a machine, and I won't name the company since they're sort of still around, but that machine ended up burning 2, 3, 4 patients on the face.
Even they'd switch out a machine, they'd fix the machine, and
so at one point, I told the staff, I know we're only 2 years into whatever loan we've done here. This machine is going to sit in this corner, and we're never turning it on again. So we basically had to eat it rather than expose the patients to a potential burn, because that is catastrophic for the patient and for us. And, most of the burns were manageable. Some of them took a fair amount of time, another different treatment on top of it, a lot of hand holding, but, an unhappy patient, and unhappy patients tell 1,000 people, whereas happy patients might tell 10 or 20. So those were the growing pains that, there was another body contouring machine that we took. And after 3 months, there was absolutely no change at all in anybody. And so they came back and retrained us and told us to put the straps on differently and do whatever. And after the end of 4 months, I just said, I just need you to take this machine back. And they did, mostly because we had a really good relationship with the rep, and he'd been a rep for another company. So I think the quality of the machines out there is better. I think you're less likely to kiss a frog today, although there's plenty of frogs that are still out there. And I think we need to do a better job of researching, because if you listen to the rep, every machine is just absolutely a great machine, and you only need 4 patients to pay your payment. You know how that goes. And
yeah, I think that the limitation in relying on research is that oftentimes the research done looks at one arm and they don't have a control arm. Certainly, we've seen this in the female, vaginal rejuvenation, energy-based treatments. And what's interesting is Viviv was one of them, and they invested in a randomized control study with in 9 different nations. And the one arm, they introduced like 1, whatever it was, millijoule of energy, and the other was a full treatment. And all patients had, improved sexual satisfaction and self-perceived vaginal tightening, but with the treatment energy at slightly more improvement, And then at 3 months, the placebo effect dropped off and the other kind of tapered. And if you look at a lot of these female treatments, energy-based treatments, they have one arm and the study goes for 3 months. So that could be a complete placebo effect. And so I think we need to demand more. It's expensive to do these studies, but it's it's hard. It would be nice to see a higher level of research.
I agree. I think, when we look at devices, if it's device that's been out for more than 3 to 6 months, then we go to the company's website and we look at Physician Finder and we look for clinics across the country that have it, instead of just getting a number from a rep. Someone that they work with, because we will call them as well, but we want to find clinics that aren't expecting our call, that haven't talked to the rep and been prepped on us and what we're looking for, and just to get like pure, just true feedback. And especially if you can talk to one of the providers that's the person that's actually doing it. I think that also makes the biggest difference as well, is just not just talking to the owner, but also the esthetician or the nurse or the physician, who's ever actually using that device. We've also found to be helpful, because we've been in a similar situation where we bought something and a few months later we weren't using it anymore. And that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, and it's a good point to talk to the person actually doing the machine, because there's some machines that it's really hard on, ergonomically. And so, you do 2 of that, whatever procedure back to back, and you're going to have repetitive stress disorder or something in your clinician. So, so that the precise feedback.
Yeah, we like to do a similar thing. And especially if we can find somebody we actually know reasonably well, we can then call them and just basically say, all right, no frills, just give me the bottom line. Would you buy this thing again or not? And that person has to be honest. They're going to see us at dinners and meetings, and they don't want to tell us something and have us buy something, and then 6 months later run into us and we go up and say, well, you had us buy a total dud. So people will be honest, even if they're having some problems, they will tell you. So that's a good way to do it.
Definitely. So talking, kind of staying on the technology or treatment products, over the past year, is there something that you've brought on that you've absolutely loved, something that's changed your practice, or something that you're excited about, whether you've already brought it on or something that you're bringing on in the next year?
I'll say the name and I'll let Heather expand, but we're very excited about Cyton and BBL Halo. It's been really.
Well, I'm such a fan.
Yeah.
They're gonna love it too.
Yeah. Like do my face and do my hands. I cycled a lot, when I was younger, and I have the worst sun damage. That is a whole lot better now, with 2 treatments. And I'm going to do the Patrick Bitter, every 3 or 4 months. He looks like ageless, and he says it's all his BBL and IPL and whatnot. So it's a great treatment. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, I think the other thing that is, it's hard sometimes to have a treatment where the patients are excited, the staff that's doing it is excited, and the doctors who brought it on are excited. And this is one of those where all 3 arms are super excited. So that was, and we had to thank Dr. Jay Burns for that one, because we went to visit him in his office and he was doing a seminar, and it seemed so simple, and he really stood by the technology. So didn't need to sell very much, because we know Jay, and we have known Jay for a while, but we knew him 30 years ago when he was the authority on lasers for all plastic surgeons. So his voice has a lot of weight, and he was absolutely right. So we're very, very excited about having BBL Hero and Halo in our practice.
And then what we're looking at bringing on, one thing is the skinny shot, which is tough for us in California, just because of the issues with compounding and, so there are real limits in California that our colleagues and just, I think, all other states don't have. But we're looking around the corner. We're looking at it not just as a weight loss treatment stand alone as a weight loss treatment, but also we have a number of patients who don't qualify for surgery because their BMI is too high. It's unsafe to proceed with surgery. And so if we say, just go lose weight, that typically doesn't work. And so a lot of our colleagues in other states are able to bring that BMI down so that they can do, the tummy tuck or whatever it is. So we've got, a few reasons to bring it on.
So what is the skinny shot?
So, the skinny shot, officially and unofficially, is any one of the glucagon-like peptides. So there's tirzepatide and semaglutide, to avoid the brand names, but both of these, especially semaglutide, has had at least a year out in the sort of general public consumption, and they have been used in the treatment of diabetes type 2, but most recently they've been approved for use in weight loss, and tirzepatide in particular was just recently approved for use in weight loss, and you don't necessarily need the diagnosis of diabetes in order to access it. I think a year ago or 2 years ago, you needed to have diabetes as a diagnosis for your doctor to prescribe it. And it has been very productive for those who've tried it. It is very expensive. So we're trying to bring it on in a generic way, at a price that works for the patients and works for the clinic, because we have talked to a lot of colleagues who are very, very positive about their experience on their patients.
Yeah, so we launched it about 6 months ago, and we have not been able to market for it yet because it just got so busy so quickly. And so we've been hiring so that we could start to actually market it, the procedure or the treatment through the clinic, or we haven't even put it on our website. But what I would say is I have a friend that has smoked for over 20 years and she is no longer smoking.
Yeah, it's
things like that. It's life-changing for so many people.
It's really interesting that it impacts habits and mood. Some people find that they're, like if they're depressed, that they're no longer depressed. It's helped with shopping addiction, drinking, alcohol. So things that are not food related. And so it's really interesting what it does. And then it's helping with cardiovascular disease, and there are a lot of health benefits.
Yeah, but if you can impact smoking
That's huge.
And also get them weight loss at the same time, because a lot of people smoke so they don't eat. And so here, if you can knock both of them out with one drug, that's really crazy. And if you have somebody where they take liquid calories and they have wine or beer or cocktails, and they limit that just because the drug is also helping that, then that also contributes to the weight loss. So it's a multi armed weapon, if you will, for so many patients. And the side effects are not to be diminished, and some people have bloating and gas, and occasionally a rare case has been reported of pancreatitis. But given the number of people that are on it, I think the benefits clearly outweigh the risks. And I think that there are clinics who have hundreds of people coming in every month, or at least on their program, because they can set them up at home to do it at home after they've been trained. So I think that's a really impactful new technology. And of course, anybody who's losing weight is going to start thinking about how their appearance might be affected, and maybe they want to try fillers, or maybe they want to try cool sculpting or M-sculpt or whatever body contouring thing to take away that little extra that is coming off with the drug.
Hi all, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. We are always looking for feedback to make it better, so be sure to give us your feedback at the link in the show notes. If you're loving the podcast, we would really appreciate it if you would share it with a friend, rate us 5 stars, and write a review. This really helps other clinics and industry professionals find our podcast. Thanks. Now let's get back to the episode. And so I understand you're also going to launch maybe potentially some IV therapy or other treatments. What will that look like?
Well, I think that the IV therapy, there's an entire new field, if you will, of wellness. And Heather's going to Vegas in a couple of weeks to a meeting, and we will be more informed after that.
That's an anti-aging conference in Las Vegas.
Yeah, so the mystery to me is what is NAD plus and what can we affect IV or even at the genetic level. So those are exciting things. And, of course, there's a little bit of, we live in the wine country. There are plenty of hangovers around here.
I have done that while I've been in the wine country, by the way.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Come to your house. Everyone gets rehydrated.
Yeah, exactly. And ready for a new day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I've just looked at, in the research for today, just a brief, it feels brief for all of the things that you've accomplished, which are just incredible. And when I look at some of your marketing techniques, thinking back to what you mentioned, right in the beginning of this podcast about hosting these seminars at restaurants back in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah.
I mean, incredible. I mean, we're still hosting these little seminars, but in the clinic, but you were doing it at restaurants.
Yeah. And
what was that like? And our kids would come, they loved the breakfast, they'd play with implants and in the back.
The kids would be in the back throwing implants at each other, and that was our babysitter, was the implants that kept them busy, and they still talk about it. And that was a long time ago because our kids are graduated from college and they're on their own. But yeah, it was a unique time. It was a time before the internet truly became the way that people learned about procedures. So we were still in the era of, I think websites became more commonplace around 97 or 98, where you could get some information, but the internet was slow and people still got their information from newspapers, and we could put ads in newspapers and then meet them and talk to them about whatever topic and we wanted to talk to them about. We would pick up one topic a month. It was a lot of work. You have to have slides. Testimonials. PowerPoint didn't exist, so it was a pioneering time. And yeah, the remains of it still happen. You can still bring people to open houses, to the office, try out new techniques, and come do demonstrations. But I think the difference is people are much more informed because they can go on the internet and truly become very knowledgeable about whatever they want to research.
So looking at all of your marketing efforts, because your website is so well done. So, the information that can be found there for your potential, for your patients or clients, it's so thorough and so beautifully done. You have the podcast Skintuition. Are you still doing, I know you're doing a big event because I just saw your Black Friday event. So I know you're doing some events. Looking at all of the ways that you focus on marketing, what do you think are one or two of the most impactful? And it could be one that's super expensive, kind of like website. I think website's more expensive, and then maybe something that's not so expensive for some of the clinic owners that are just getting started and don't have 100,000, to start initially on a website.
Well, I think it's really a combination. We try to utilize, one thing on many levels, a YouTube video and put it on social media. I would say the website is number one, and we really invest in that. And, when people, young plastic surgeons ask us about, what do I need to know? And we say, don't go with a cheap website person, because, it may look beautiful, but if you don't have the SEO, the search engine optimization behind that, then nobody's going to be able to find you. And so, so I think that helps. We do a monthly newsletter that has a high open rate, and we try to make it really like a newsletter so that there's news. It's not just a string of discounts. And we have a profile of one of our staff and make it sort of fun. We've got 20 questions for them to kind of bounce off of. What's your favorite movie, or your favorite thing to cook, or et cetera, et cetera. And so, and they include photos so that we humanize them. We have some sort of special discount. We have a little article about a non-surgical treatment, a surgical treatment. So that has helped. Social media, the videos, of course, help. They take time, and we always want to do more videos. And so I think the hard thing is just finding that time. And going into the new year, we're trying to really focus on organizing that better so that we can do little video things, because we always talk about it, but we don't do enough.
I think one thing to emphasize, particularly for people starting out, and we run an aesthetic fellowship, and our fellow left here and started her own private practice in Tampa, Florida in July or August. And she's finding out it is very, very expensive to get started. You need to have all these sort of tools. And when we went into practice, you didn't even have these things available. I think to emphasize the customer experience with any customer that comes in, because you know how hard it is. The lifetime value of a customer is huge. So if you can acquire that person and make that customer experience be impactful, they're going to be your best fans, your best referrers. So spending, especially early on when you have more time, making that customer feel like they're the only person in your office, because they probably are, and making them feel very special and return, because price is not everything. People think I'll go low, but as they say, good Botox ain't cheap, and cheap Botox ain't good.
Yeah, and that brings up a really great point. When plastic surgical patients are looking for an aesthetic plastic surgeon, the top two things they look at are before and after photos and reviews. And so reviews are really important, and people consider important reviews to be within the past 3 months. So, just because you got a 5-star in 2017 doesn't really, and you get, if you've got 15 over 20 years, that 15 years, that doesn't really hold water. So you need to continue to get good reviews. And the way you get good reviews is exactly what Paco was saying. It's that customer experience, checking in on them, afterwards, being great beforehand, and making sure they feel really cared for.
And then how do you go about asking for the review? Or do you do that? Because I think, for me, I think that there are some people that just love to write reviews. They think about it constantly. And I will say, like, if it's an extremely well done event, or something, I experienced some great customer service, I will take the time to do it. But I'm much better if they ask me. If they ask or send me the link, and then I'll click on it and do it right away. Otherwise, I tend to forget, and then it doesn't get done. So I'm just curious if you found any method that's helped you to collect, more regular reviews.
We've tried a number of things, and, one, have the doctor ask, but when we're focusing on the care and to do all the phrasing, some people, consultants will recommend the best way to compliment us is to write a review. And this is like, oh, it's all about us. You just spent a lot of money with us, and now we're asking for you to do this thing for free. So I don't really feel comfortable with that approach. And so I emphasize how it helps other patients. And so, but because it does take time out of what can be, really important conversation, I sort of worked with my medical assistant, and she will ask for a review, and some verbiage that we've heard is, this would mean a lot to the doctor. And so I think there are a few things. I think if you just text without any personal connection, that tends to not be nearly as effective.
Yeah, I think in the follow-up of any patient, particularly a patient that's had a great result, whether it's a halo or a filler, they will communicate with you and say, I'm so excited about my lips, or I'm excited about how my skin looks. At that point, when they're at their high, that's when you ask them, because they're much more receptive at that time. And the ask is difficult always. And you also have to make it easy. So we used to have a little card with a QR code where people would just scan their phone and it would take them right to the review site. Google, it requires that you identify yourself, and a lot of people, particularly in plastic surgery, don't necessarily want to be open about whatever they did. So we have to also be mindful of that privacy. It's a lot easier to ask for a med spa review because, everybody has had Dysport or Botox or something similar to that. It's not a stigma. Whereas if you had a facelift, a lot of people would judge you, or if you had whatever other procedure, people would judge you. So we've used services before that promise you that they're going to get lots of reviews, and some of them are okay. Most of them we haven't had the greatest luck. So I think taking it internally, having an easy link to our review, and preparing the patient. You will get a text, asking for a review. It would be great if you could give us a review. Other patients will benefit. Not everybody needs to have huge lips. When you have a filler, and they can be as wonderful as your lips are. And so people like to help others. And I think if you hit them on that level, that you're super happy, you're helping others make a decision. And by making a decision to come here, you're more likely to get what you're actually looking for.
There's a lot of patients say, well, that's actually how I chose you. So yeah, I can see why it's important to other people.
I love that. I love that. We've done the QR code, and we have, a QR code up at the front, but it is, the team and asking and talking about it. But I love that look at it where it's more about helping others. And because it's true for me too. I mean, I read reviews.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
I read a lot of reviews for places I'm going, things I'm doing, something I'm buying. I read the reviews. So I think that makes, that can make a big difference. So, so some of the other marketing. So actually I want to start out or ask you the question, why the podcast? How did that come about? What is your goal behind it? Do you know an outstanding med spa, doctor, manager, provider, or groundbreaking treatment that is reshaping the industry? Nominate them for Men's Clinics to Watch. We are so excited to launch this initiative to recognize the true leaders in our industry. Our aim is to spotlight those leading the way to excellence, providing valuable insights for others to pave their path to success. Check out our website for past winners of the Clinics to Watch. You can also nominate someone at the link in our show notes. Share your nominations and be part of celebrating the industry leaders. Let's inspire and build success together.
Well, Josh Corman is a really good friend with whom we trained. He was a year behind us and in our plastic surgery training. And he's the co-editor of The Business of Plastic Surgery, which you had mentioned. And so I just wanted to, get some experience with a podcast. And surgery is a tough thing because it's a smaller audience. It's harder to get people to talk about it just because no one wants to say, I'm really interested in breast augmentation. And this also, so we focus on non-surgical in part to just, bring in the latest. We try to bring in innovative information. Sometimes it's just the two of us. We will also interview people. And so I learn a lot putting together the podcast, and it's not specifically for the practice, but everything we do, we talk about, is pertinent to our patients in the practice. And so it's not a salesy thing, it's purely outward facing, patient facing, because a lot of med spa type podcasts that I would come across were more med spa owner facing. And there just didn't seem to be a lot of layperson potential patient facing. And we wanted really good information out there. And now it's, if we have a patient who is interested in whatever it is, a skinny shot or exosomes or peels or products or, the hyperpigmentation, a lot of different things, we can just send them the episode of this podcast.
Well, I think, I've listened to multiple episodes, been stalking you guys over the last few days. And, I was thinking this is so great, not only for our patients or clients, but I think also for other owners, clinic owners, physicians, nurses, estheticians that want to learn more about exosomes, that want to learn more about, hair restoration, that want to learn more about maybe some of the procedures that they don't offer, but they'd like to hear how you talk about it and how you talk to your clients about it, and how, I just think it can go, I would say, that's why I wanted to promote it here as well, because I think it'd be such a beneficial learning platform for our team. So I've passed it on to our entire team to say, you've got to check out these episodes. They're so good. And, for some of the things that we don't offer, just to say, we may not offer this, but, we can maybe help push them or put them in the right direction. Another clinic, because oftentimes, there are clients that come in that need plastic surgery. And so, or for the result that they're looking for is what I'm saying.
Right, exactly.
Or what they're telling me, I cannot get that result. And so the idea is that, why don't you go have a consult with a plastic surgeon and see if that is something that you want or you're interested in. And if it's not, then come back and we can do something that we have here. But I think it's nice to have a platform to learn about other procedures that we don't offer, and then have a referral with someone in our own market that then we could refer to and say, here's an excellent resource for that procedure. So anyway, I've loved listening to your episodes. And so,
oh, thank you, Kathy.
Good job on that. When I first started this, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to give it a go. So here we are.
Well, it certainly is effort. I mean, you have, I don't know how many episodes so far, 40 episodes or something, and your own podcast. And so it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and we're doing it every 2 weeks, broadcasting every 2 weeks, because we figured once a month is too infrequent, and we just don't have the bandwidth to do it weekly, although I wish we could.
It is, it does take more than you think to do it.
Yeah.
And I did just have a conversation with another clinic owner, and it turns out her husband is a professional podcaster. And she's like, she's like, I love your podcast. I'm thinking, and then she tells me that, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, and I actually asked her, I said, well, hey, could I pay him to be a consultant for me to go through my processes and look at how I'm doing it and my sound, because I know my sound can improve, and some other things. And so I thought, why not get some help? Just like everything else that we do. And so I thought that, there's always ways that we can up our game. And I thought, I don't need to recreate the wheel. I just want somebody to help.
Yeah, exactly. We do have a producer, and she helps with a lot of stuff. And, it's a learning curve. And I actually took a podcast online course, and there were just a lot of bumps along the way. And so I told Josh, I think the way to stay young is to do things you have no idea what you're doing, because it's like the brain, you gotta it's hard, but it's fun.
Oh, well, so I also want to mention your book, The Business of Plastic Surgery, because I was looking through a number of chapters, and, I think, one, what an amazing resource if you're looking to go to med school or decide whether or not plastic surgery is right for you, or how you discuss, the full process of hiring and negotiating your contracts. And there's so many valuable pieces in that book that I think are really could be used outside of plastic surgery as well. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, at some point we thought of expanding, doing other specialties, but it does kind of narrow it within plastic surgery. But you're absolutely right. Just running a business, running a practice, SEO contracts, that is not just plastic surgery. It's much broader. The med spa and the chapter on the med spa, there are a lot of things that are pertinent far beyond plastic surgery. And we've been invited to come up, publish a third edition. So there's so this was just published in 2019. But even then, in that space of time, Josh and I were saying, well, I don't think we'll do another one, but there's so much new stuff that, the private equity and AI and, all kinds of things that are innovations.
Yeah, the moment you send it to the publisher and it gets published, you think, oh my God, it's going to be out of date in like a year. So, because our field is truly just exploding, and like Heather said, there's this entire new thing, private equity, companies like CPP, and what do you do? Do you sell? Do you not sell? What is AI going to look like in a year in the aesthetic field? And we have no idea. So we keep pushing. I'm taking a class with the Berkeley School of Business on AI, and Heather just took a class with Stanford. And we just do this in the evenings, but you just try to keep up with a very rapidly changing field.
I mean, have you guys ever slept? I am the type of person, I really do like 8 hours, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just feel like you guys are like the 2-hour kind of people, and so cheerful and passionate and kind.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, no, there's a lot of research showing that, sleep deprivation is not good for the brain. Yeah. So we're very good about getting our sleep.
Yeah, but we do like to get up early.
Yeah, we get up early.
We do stuff early, and that's probably the best time in the day to get a lot of stuff done before the day unfolds.
Well, so you've both seen a lot over the years, and we've seen a lot of med spas come and go. And just, a couple things before we end. I won't keep you on much longer. I just feel like we could do a whole series together, but I know I only have you for about an hour. What do you think have been the contributors to the failures? Those clinics that have gone out of business early, or, what have you seen over the years?
I think a lack of understanding of the business side. I think people see money coming in, like Botox, fillers, lasers, that brings in a lot of money. And if you're not looking at inventory control and staff salaries and the different ways that siphon money, returning money to patients, marketing, all of that, people don't really appreciate. You bring on a machine, and you really should figure out the fixed cost per month, the variable cost per month, and how many treatments you need to do to have a good ROI. And so you've really got to have an interest in the business side, track the numbers, set goals, look at benchmarks, and make sure that you are on the way. And when you're falling short, what is it? Why are you falling short? Are you offering? We used to have estheticians who love doing waxings and facials, and it was like $15 per waxing, and they love doing it. And I said, that room, that's like an idling 747 before that was retired. So idling 777, and you're selling cupcakes out of it. We can't do that. And I finally had to take that waxing machine and throw it away. They wouldn't give it up. And a 90-hour facial for 90 minutes. 90 hour. That was a really high price facial. 90-minute facial for $85 did not pencil out. So it was hard to change the culture that we really need to look at revenue per hour. And so it took a while to kind of change the culture and really get people to appreciate that we need to look at these metrics?
I think as medicine has gotten more difficult for doctors, a lot of people feel, well, I'll just start a med spa. And so med spas are now going up at a very high rate. And a lot of people think of it as some transactional thing. We just, open up and offer a better deal than the next people, and we'll do fine. But people don't necessarily just go for the cheap deals, and you have to differentiate your med spa from the next one. You need to, concentrate on service. You need to concentrate on, high quality providers. You need to, educate each provider and send them to courses so they do only the best treatments and carry them out safely, because they're all medical procedures. And you see people trying to go to somebody's house and get Botox in somebody's kitchen, and that's just not gonna work. And I think those med spas where it's all transactional end up failing, and they don't realize there's a high cost to buying the products, and buying fillers, buying Botox costs a lot of money. So there was a time when, around 2008, when the economy was poor, and a lot of med spas in San Francisco just absolutely closed, and they were using remote doctors from Vegas and from Southern California, no supervision. So those were not long-term places. So I think having on-site management that really cares, that's really on top of what's going on the day-to-day, is going to be key. And you can't just sort of open up and feel like, oh, this is easy money.
Well, I think hearing you both talk so much about training and education throughout, today's chat, but also saying that you both just took an AI class.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just additional courses on, and in surgery, of course, or medicine or lasers or products, but an AI class. And I, because I've been telling my team, I'm like, I want to find a local Kansas City AI expert to come in and look at our business and give some suggestions. But I should just go take a class.
Yeah.
What am I waiting for?
There are some classes out there, and our son's in tech, and so it's exciting to hear him talk about what he's doing. And our daughter was a prompt engineer for a while for an AI company. And so that kind of, gets us excited. And so then I just searched for online courses. Coursera, may be giving some, they've got some good courses. I haven't checked their AI courses.
What I did find out is that it can be a very humbling experience, because a lot of the people in my class are already in the AI space. So as the lectures go on and I'm struggling to keep up with the class, and they're putting up math that I haven't seen in years, these people are all part of this already. So they are way ahead of me. And so when the homework comes and you have to do homework every week, it's like, to me, it's a struggle. And when I finally turn it in, I realize, hey, I'm the last one to have turned in this homework. And it's probably a lot better examples of homework that I can look at once I turn mine in. So yeah, it keeps you humble, it keeps you on your toes, and it also teaches you a lot about what's out there, and to think about how could we use AI in aesthetic medicine, not just in the medical side, but also on the business side, to make our life easier on a day-to-day basis.
If you're looking for a management and marketing training for your med spa, head to Kansas City with Mint Aesthetics. Join us on May 7th and 8th for an immersive 2-day hands-on training session led by the management team of a $14 million med spa thriving for over 20 years. Discover the processes that propelled our success and learn how to adapt them to your business. This collaborative environment provides a unique opportunity to share successes, ask growth-oriented questions, and gain insights from our own missteps. Engage with aesthetic care owner Matt Toronto on company culture and customer service. Dive into the marketing strategies behind our annual open house, our biggest revenue-generating event of the year. Even talk with our clinic manager about the intricacies of hiring and training for the highest level of customer service. Our entire management and marketing team will be at your disposal for a comprehensive exchange of ideas, insights, and effective initiatives for your clinic. Don't miss out. Use the link in our show notes to learn more about this event or secure your spot today.
I think absolutely. I mean, that's what I've been looking at for the last few months. And I just know I've only seen the smallest amount of what it can do. And I'm just so excited. I just don't want to be the last person to get on with it. I want to be now. I want to be the first or the second or the third or fifth, not the 100th, So there's already so many ways that we use it just to, whether it's like writing a newsletter or coming up with questions for a podcast or putting together a marketing plan for a year. I mean, you can put all of that in and it's not going to be 100% right, but it gives you a starting place that, maybe cuts down the amount of time it would normally take me, by half or even more. So
absolutely,
there's huge value in it.
Yeah, you can use AI to write an ebook and have it available to download on your website.
Yeah, and you just, you kind of edit it then, but you've got something there.
Yeah.
I mean, we were even using it for our Halloween posts to come up with fun costume names instead of just, there's just so many different things you can do with it,
Yeah, that's exactly
okay,
right.
well, so one last question for you all before we finish today is, there are a number of business partners that are married in our industry.
Mm-hmm.
And we noticed that. Yeah.
And I look around and I don't know if I could say that there's another industry that I see the same amount, but I really haven't done any research on that. It's probably just because it's what I see every day. But what have you found to be to create what tips or what has worked for you? I mean, you've been together now for how many years? You've been in business now for how many years? Maybe a struggle that's happened or a challenge or just something that you focus on, or is it just always been easy? I mean, how do you do it?
Well, I think in the hard times, those are the times when I really appreciate having Paco, because that stress level is really high. And so we have each other's backs. We look at things sometimes from a slightly different point of view, and that is also really helpful. That we have different interests within the business that really helps. We're both surgeons, but a lot of the couples will be the surgeon and a non-surgeon spouse who is really intimately involved in all the business aspect, and that's really great because you've got this really smart person with a vested interest. And I think that we've seen that really well run practices. That's often a combination.
Yeah, and you guys have two non-surgeons, both intimately knowledgeable and involved with the medspa. So I think having the two people, I think Heather alluded to, you can sometimes look at it from a different standpoint, or there are things that you like to do, but maybe your spouse doesn't like to do. And for example, Heather never liked to talk to the bankers. And so I was sort of the person to talk to the banker, get the money. And she's got plenty of other things. She was the one who was bringing KPIs and goals and targets, and people saying we can't do that, and suddenly you do it and then you surpass it. So having different perspectives, I think, complements each other. We complement each other, and it covers the basis of what the business needs for success.
Yeah, and I think any entrepreneurial endeavor, and not just aesthetic medicine, but I think anything, it's a roller coaster ride. And you gotta love the adventure. Otherwise, we'd be at Kaiser collecting a salary. But it's fun, and overall, not that it's always fun. It can be exceedingly stressful, but it's an adventure.
That it is. And I'm always happy that I'm on the roller coaster with Matt. I'll tell you. He makes all the highs really high. And when I'm sad, just like Heather was saying, he always, picks me up or gives me a shoulder to cry on. So Oh, I love that. Well, is there anything that we haven't talked about tonight that you'd like to share? Anything that we missed that you'd like to
I
touch
think
on?
we've gone pretty, I mean, I think we covered what we thought
Yeah,
we
I
covered.
think the one thing I would say, the last question you had printed, your greatest accomplishment to date. And I would say family, our family. And what does it have to do with, our practice? There are similarities, looking at the bigger picture, developing people, treating people with kindness, but nonetheless guiding them and helping them. And within surgery, a lot, it's pretty brutal for women. And so it's been very, very difficult for a lot of women to even have kids because the culture has been so anti-child. That's getting better. And so that's something that's near and dear to my heart, working with younger plastic surgeons. I publish papers in this and op-eds, and we've got 4 or 5 pregnant employees right now, and it's not easy, but we welcome every baby. And so it's, we want people to feel supported, and we want people to feel like this is really their family.
I love that. Thank you for stopping to share that. Even before I get on each podcast or I get up to speak, I always think, what do I want to bring to this? And tonight I was just thinking, how can we help our listeners? How can we help those people that are newer in this business to get through some of the things that seem so difficult? And two, I had read quite a bit about your passion with helping women, and I'm so impressed by that and so grateful for that, as I'm sure so many women are. But also to hear you talk about family is just the most important thing as well, because, I waited to be a mother until my 40s, and I didn't realize what an impact that was make, both with my babies, but then also my work family, and that it's just all family.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so true.
So anything you would like to share, Paco?
No, I think that Heather nailed it with the family analogy, and
yeah, he's been, we've been partners at work and true partners at home too.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight, and for so many of the things that you share that are definitely that have made an impact in my life, and that will definitely make an impact in so many others. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. For our listeners, make sure that you follow Paco and Heather at Allegro Med Spa, at Skintuition Podcast, and the Plastic Surgery Associates. You can check out all of their websites. And I actually didn't mention that you have the original dayspa.com website. Yeah. How have I not said that yet? It's amazing. You have dayspa.com.
Yeah, we weren't going to give it up. So.
1997, yeah.
I wouldn't either. That's amazing. And of course, you can download The Business of Plastic Surgery, Navigating a Successful Career. I bought it at Amazon.com, but is there a better place to purchase it?
Yeah, no, that's probably it's easier than Thieme, THIEME, which is the publisher, but Amazon's the easiest.
We'll add that in the podcast notes as well. So
right.
Thank you again. You all have a wonderful night. And I hope.
Thank you. You too. And give our best to Matt.
Yeah,
great seeing
you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Making of a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast. I'm Kat Toronto, and it's been an absolute joy to be part of your journey. Until next time, let your passion lead the way. See you soon.